Please welcome the great Terry Gilliam. Terry, welcome. So Terry, I believe, if I recall correctly, the Pythons tackled the meaning of life almost 30 years ago, and now here you are again.
Yes.
What is it about you and the meaning of life?
My inability to know what it is, the eternal search. That's it. And no, I thought our summation, or Mike Palin's summation on the meaning of life, was quite useful. Just be nice to your friends, tidy up after yourself, and get on with it. Some people want more than that.
Yeah. Do you want more than that?
Yeah, I actually do. I think it's nice to be able to make things that make a difference. In that sense, and so I think a lot of people would like to be able to influence the world more than they're likely to do. My whole life has been learning how little influence one actually does have, despite one's best efforts.
So this is a script that came to you. When did it come to you? A few years ago?
It came to me in a dream. I believe God sent it, actually.
First class or second class?
With me, it's third. It's steerage when it comes to me. No, Dick Zanuck, the famous Dick Zanuck, who produced a lot of Tim Burton's films, he came to me with it, and it was interesting because it wasn't a very good film script. It was written by Pat Rushin, who is a creative professor of creative writing in Florida, but it was full of interesting things, interesting characters, different ways of going about it, and it intrigued me. But despite the number of free lunches I got from Dick, I decided I'd rather go off and do Dr. Parnassus.
Yeah,
and I did, and then after that, I tried to do, as I always do, as I'm doing now, restart Don Quixote.
Yeah.
And having failed once again on that one, I found, it's going to be a couple more years before I get a job. And I thought I better do something. And my agent said, well, what about Zero Theorem? And Voltage Pictures, who were putting money into it, said yes. And off we went.
So I'm intrigued by the script. When it arrived, was it formatted in the usual way the script is, or was it slightly different, slightly more out there?
It was a little bit more like a story in that sense, yeah. I mean, it was a script, but it's the kind of thing when you get a script, there's more structure in a script rather than just lots of wonderful dialogue and character. And on one hand, that intrigued me. On the other hand, I knew it wasn't really a film script. But I thought, let's go for it. And in a sense, we didn't really spend the time one normally does to, quote, improve a script before we started shooting, because there was only 2 months between Christoph Waltz saying yes and them agreeing to pay for it and me starting shooting.
Okay.
And so there wasn't time to do anything other than go. What's on the page, we will do. And we altered as we went along because, we had to. And in fact, I spent longer in post-production on this one than anything I've done before, because in many ways we rewrote it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, with the material we had, it was like a jigsaw puzzle. It always is like that with my films. Scenes that should go there end up there. This one was more so. And I mean, the first thing I did was to chop off the last 3 scenes and the unbelievable Hollywood ending.
I have to ask, was there an unbelievable Hollywood ending?
There was an unbelievable Hollywood ending. But it was probably one reason the film got made. And then I betrayed them all.
Do they know? Have they seen it? The money guys, have they seen the ending?
Yes, they're delighted with it. They realized I made the right choice. And most happily, Pat Rushin, who wrote it, was so relieved that I cut it off, because he was actually sticking that ending on to try to get somebody interested in giving him the money to make it.
So Pat sent the script to you, and I believe I saw another interview with you where you said that he basically tailored it for you. He wrote it for Terry Gilliam by putting in lots of Terry Gilliam references. It was.
I don't know if he did that. All I know is that when I read it, I knew here was a man who'd seen every film I had made and memorized most of them. And I thought this would be an interesting way to do my compendium, my autumn year compendium, like Fellini did with Amarcord, or Bergman with Fanny and Alexander, where they kind of just relaxed and did the things they were really good with, all the things they'd done before in a nice new package. That was my plan.
But how much of you, if you have 2 months in from the moment the money guys go, yes, we're going to do this, Christoph Waltz signs on, how much of you can you put into this? Because it's obviously about a man searching for the meaning of life, and I wonder how much of your particular search and your particular interest in that subject filtered into Christoph Waltz's character.
I think it always does. I mean, I always end up making autobiographical films in one form or another. I mean, I usually am one or more of the characters in it. So if I can't identify with them, I don't know how to make the film. So there's all of that. I mean, I think what intrigued me more on this one was that when I first met Christoph, and I said, you know, you're never off screen. This is your film, this Cohen Left's film. And I said, I'm going to follow you. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You are the film. And the thing with Christoph, here's a man who spent his whole life as a jobbing actor. He lived in Tufnell Park for 8 years. He worked in England. None of us ever realized he was on the same planet, existing at all. And at 52 years of age, he suddenly becomes an international motion picture star. Now there's a lot of stuff there to play with, a lot of frustration for all those years of being a non-entity, anger, all these things. And I thought, this is going to be very good for the character, and indeed it is.
Let's take a look now. We actually have some clips from the film. This one has Christoph Waltz in action, and this is the scene where Bob talks to Corin in his house. So we'll play the clip and we'll talk about it afterwards. Nothing's perfect. Nothing lasts forever.
I love that. I love that attitude. I love the fact that it's almost like the Emperor's New Clothes, where the kid is the one that can see the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that something he says, that this is what he believes in? Bob, the kid, says, I believe in this, that the universe is going to contract eventually. Is that what you believe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
Oh, it might as well.
Yeah.
It's got to end somewhere.
I know. I mean, I have no idea what the film is saying. This is it. This is what we got.
Yeah.
Find the meaning in it here, now. Live your life. Don't wait for somebody to tell you what it should be. Live it now. Find the meaning. And that's a very important thing for me in this film, because I find now that we're living in the world of 100% tweeting and nonstop communication 24 hours a day, it's like nobody has time to just be alone. Who are you? Be alone. Find out. Don't keep twitting to some friend of yours to tell you who you are or what you're doing or what you should be doing. And that's very important to me, because there's actually a line in there where he's in the film where he says, I was alone but never lonely, because I've been for several years trying to promote aloneness, to try to disconnect, because I think so many of us are becoming neurons. Maybe we're just the axon or the dendrite, I'm not sure which one, but without some other bit of information coming in, we don't exist. So as soon as we get a bit of information, we got to pass it on to somebody else. Oh, that's what you're eating. Oh, that looks great. Get over there. This is what Hollywood executives have become. They only exist because they get a little bit of information and they pass it on to the next people. And it's great if you're just a neuron. But I'm hoping we're just a little bit more interesting than your standard neuron.
That's pretty. I'm going to tweet that actually, Terry. That's pretty good. Or maybe I'll save it for later on. Obviously, we saw Christoph Waltz there. I mean, how did he become involved? Had he just won Oscar #2 at this point, or was that?
Did he? No, he got the second one for Django, didn't he?
Yeah.
No, he had won for Inglourious Bastards a year or two earlier, and in fact, that's where I first met him, at the BAFTA Awards backstage with all our glittering friends, you know. And there was Christoph over there, and we both went, "Got to work with you," and indeed, that's what happened. And no, I love him. He's just so good, so skilled. When we were editing it. Every shot, every moment of the shot, there's something to watch with him. It's all there. I personally think, and luckily I'm not alone because others have said the same thing, that this is maybe the best performance he's ever done. It's so rich. It's not as jolly or as outrageous as his Quentin characters, but it's so complex and so, I think, moving, incredibly moving.
Well, there's something very in control about his Quentin characters.
Yeah.
Both King Schultz and Hans Landa. They have this charisma about them. This guy Cohen is completely cut adrift. He's completely bereft.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. That's why I needed something like that, because the character is not a sympathetic character. In many ways, I think he's a selfish bastard who's so desperate to get away from everybody else who seems to be having a good time to wait for this phone call that is going to tell him the meaning of his life. And in fact, he does isolate himself. And yet what the film does is not allow him to be alone ultimately. And he finds his humanity in the course of it. But that doesn't necessarily mean it'll be a happy ending.
There was one once. It got cut. How did you persuade Christoph? You want to basically shave his head and shave the eyebrows and go the whole hog.
Well, that's what the script said, that he was hairless. What do you do? I just do what I'm told. I said, Christoph, off comes the hair. And then the great thing is, all actors, their eyebrows are incredibly important tools in their craft. Okay, you got nothing to work with, kid. Let's go. And it was great, because what's so funny is when I saw him at the BAFTAs, I hadn't seen him for quite a while, and his hair had grown back. I didn't recognize him. He doesn't look like that man that's in Zero Theorem.
Yeah.
Now, that's what's wonderful. There's no vanity there. It's just, what does the character demand? I will do it.
Well, right from the beginning, I mean, you present us, the first image of the movie is Christoph Waltz's bald head and his
ass.
His buttocks, yeah. There's no glossing over it. It's there.
Well, again, that was in the script, and I just... It basically states everything right in that first shot. Chaos in the universe, a man there floating in it, completely naked, kind of lost, waiting for something, which all of us really are, aren't we? If it wasn't for tweeting, we would all feel like that man.
I'd be so lost, so lost. You got Bruce Willis to shave his head for 12 Monkeys, and you once described his head as a monument to cranial architecture. I've never forgotten that quote. Where do you rank Christoph Waltz's bald skull on the Bruce Willis scale?
Oh, God. No, he doesn't have the angles that Bruce has built into his. Bruce has been working on baldness for a long time. Christoph has still got a full head of hair. And so he's not practiced the various angles that a head must have. I think it's a good head. And I think that's why you'll see at the end of the film, he's very majestic. I would say he belongs on Mount Rushmore in the last shots of the film. You decide for yourself whether the angles are correct, but I think it's a majestic head.
Absolutely. By the way, will we ever see the Hollywood ending on Blu-ray or? Of
course, I'll put it on a Blu-ray or a DVD and allow other film students see if they can put the film back together and make a better film. I really like that. No, I love showing all the bits and pieces of the jigsaw puzzle, and I do encourage people to go and play with it. Maybe you can make a better film. There are many films to be made out of the material.
Just give them all the materials out there. Yeah. That'd be fun. Yeah, it'd be interesting. Who's seen the film, by the way? Because it opened today. Okay, so you intrigued by the idea of this Hollywood ending? Okay, well, we'll see. And we've got another clip now from the movie, which is this shows the outside life. This is a future London. How far in the future is this film?
I think it's yesterday already. The future is roaring. Literally, we shot it in Bucharest and tried to disguise the streets so they had some element of Londonness in them, so I could get London or British taxpayers' money to help finish the film. And at the time when I was putting it all together, I kept inventing things that I thought would be. But literally by the time we were shooting the last couple scenes, it was in the past already. So it's what you see.
Let's take a look.
Here's it's funny. Those little cars are called Twizzies. Uh-huh. Renault gave us 15 of them. That wasn't sufficient to fill the streets, so I stole the golf carts from the studio and we stuck panels on the side and turned them into taxis. But I'd never seen a Twizzy before in my life. The day I got back from shooting in Bucharest in London, there was one parked right by my house in London.
So break in, take it.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by that scene. There's so much density of material, on visual material for people to take in there. How much fun was that to layer things, the audiovisual displays on the walls as Cohen walks past?
It was great because I just wanted to overwhelm him. Information overload. And those, basically I wrote most of those silly ads there. And we've got a really great cast doing that. We've got Gwendolyn Christie from Game of Thrones. There's Lily Cole. There's Ray Cooper, the famous percussionist with Elton John and Eric Clapton. There's Rupert Friend. That was our cast of people to do all those ads.
Okay.
And I just wanted to get, like Occupy Mall Street, Shoppers of the World Unite, all of this stuff. Where you take, sort of heartfelt political slogans and things, you turn them into ways of selling shit, basically.
And there's also a cameo in there from our beloved mayor, Boris Johnson, at the very, very end.
Yes. There's Boris, slightly aged.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
still blonde.
The thing that was funny, Bucharest, of course, drives on the opposite side of the street, and I was having to pretend it was London. But when we got the Twizzies, the steering wheel is in the center, so it didn't make any difference. Same with the golf carts. But we did have one London bus, so I stuck with it. And we had to stick it in there, get Boris up there. And what we had, he's saying, drive on the right. It's your human right to drive on the right. Remember that.
How difficult was it to make that movie on that scale, that scene on that scale? Because I also saw an interview with you where you said you had less money to make this movie than you had to make Life of Brian. Yeah. Which is astonishing.
I know. I think when you see the whole movie, even those bits, I mean, it looks like a proper Hollywood movie. Yeah. But it was a budget of $8.5 million. It's basically impossible, but one reason we were in Bucharest, because it is the cheapest place in Europe where you can get a good crew and shoot. And I brought basically 5 people to Bucharest. Everybody else is local. And the crews were great there. But we just worked so hard, killed ourselves. Everybody, for me, it was say, all right, you're really good. Now we're going to test how good you are. Here you've got no money and no time. Do it and see what happens. And so what does happen is that, I don't know if you notice those costumes, Carlo Poggioli, who did them, again, had no money, so he found a market outside of Bucharest where it was all Chinese product, where you bought material, cloth and all, not by the yard, but by the kilo, just sheer bulk weight. And it was horrible man-made stuff that was like, I don't know if any of you remember trim jeans in this country, where it was sort of, it's plastic material, and you'd pump it up a bit, and then you'd sweat to death inside the thing and lose tons and tons of weight in a very short while. The clothes were like that, so Matt Damon, he would. It was very difficult to keep the moisture pouring off him. It was horrible. But even that material, cheap though it was, wasn't enough. So Carlo then got transparent shower curtains and tablecloths and cut out to make clothes as well. So we ended up with, I think, an extraordinary fashion statement that wouldn't exist were it not for our abject poverty.
And you shot it in how many days?
I think it's just 35, was it? 34, 35. Something like that.
When was the last time you had a schedule that compressed?
When I was young and healthy. No, it was literally I think the last week was 8 days. I mean, it was 7, but there was 8 because it was just working around the clock. People were falling asleep all over the place. And, there's a lot of complicated things that happen in there because we got a space sequence where Cohen is naked floating in space, and we then got this beach sequence where I think are you going to show that one or not?
We're going to show it.
Yeah, and this was all taking place in a tank in the studio, and they were supposed to have 3 days to revamp the tank and the water for the beach. In fact, it had to be done overnight. So everything was like that. That scene you saw on the street was shot before lunch, basically.
Wow.
We had about 3 or 4 hours to do the whole sequence. That's it.
God.
So there was no time to do anything other than just work by instinct and just do it. Now, there was no going back. Do it. And we were very lucky. That's all I could say.
Oh my God! You mentioned the beach sequence. We'll see that now. I don't know if you want to set it up. Who we're seeing Cohen and
basically
Melanie Thierry's character.
Melanie Thierry is playing the female lead in it. she's basically a gal who works in the sex business, and she actually they're given these suits that they wear, and they go into a virtual world, and the virtual world is, I guess, what we're going to see in a moment.
Absolutely. Roll a clip. It's better than real.
That beach is about as wide as this room.
Really?
That's it, yeah.
Not much room for frolicking then with a beach ball. They really couldn't do that. It's interesting. You say that the film takes place yesterday, effectively, but I'm pretty sure that technology isn't quite available just yet.
Unfortunately
not. Melanie Thierry is really interesting. She's so effervescent in the film. Where did you find her? How did she come about for you?
She's quite well known in France, but she's tended to play these rather demure, serious characters, and I told her, I thought, think of Marilyn Monroe and Judy Holliday, and that's what she does. She's just an extraordinary actor. She's never had a chance to play somebody as so bubbly and fun, and I loved her. There's a very critical scene in the movie later on. I won't tell you about it, but it's why I chose her for that scene, because I thought she would be able to pull that scene off brilliantly. Yeah. A friend of mine actually was the one that told me about her, Albert Dupontel. Mm-hmm. Does he mean anything? He's a brilliant French actor, director, writer, and I'm in his latest film. Thank you. No, he's absolutely brilliant. And he said, Melanie Thierry, and I didn't know who she was. And then she was in this film that Bertrand Tavernier had made, The Princess of Montpensier, something like that. She's very elegant. And I called Bertrand up and asked him what he thought. And he says, she's like a Stradivarius. You can play her any way. She can go. She's fearless. And, well, when you see the whole film, certainly every man I know is besotted with her.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And speaking of fearless performances, Matt Damon, we haven't seen him in the clips, but he's also in the film. He's brilliant. Matt Damon, as you've never seen him before, I'm guessing. And David Thewlis with quite the greatest hairpiece in cinema history, I'm saying.
Well, this is what I love about filmmakers. You know, David came in and we decided he was going to wear a toupee. And the toupee was made and stuck on. And I went into the makeup room and said, have you ever thought of wearing it backwards? and it ends up with it's like a futurist scene like that. He's flying forward, but it's horrible.
I love that it doesn't even begin to blend in.
No, he just gave up on that. And he doesn't know that because the guy looks in the mirror and it probably looks great, but all around the back, it doesn't work. But David, I've always wanted to work with David for a long time, and here was the chance. And he to me, is just breathtaking. Every take is different. It's always within character, but each one he gives you a little something else to play with, and his timing is exquisite. What I loved most, there's a scene which is in the film with him and Christoph, and I just kept the camera back. It's a two-shot, and just let the two of them play, and we could just sit back and watch two brilliant actors playing off each other just so subtly and beautifully. It's great.
I've seen many reviews actually liken David Thewlis' performance in this to Eric Idle. Is this
I
something?
think that's really a cruel criticism. I mean, Eric doesn't have a patch on David. What are you talking about? Wait till you see the Python show. You'll see what I mean.
Is this something that you as a director have to watch out for? Actors in your films Pythoning it up? The way like people in Woody Allen movies usually play Woody Allen.
I don't think they do, and I certainly don't encourage them. I think it's the critics who are trying to find some hook to make it sound like they know what I've done in the past. There's one, the Variety review. It was the most horrible review. It's a woman whose name will not be spoken. And all she kept talking about was the Python jokes in it, and jokes. There's nothing Python-esque in it, and I don't think David is Eric. I think he's far subtler and much cleverer and probably much funnier.
Okay, I imagine you all have questions for Terry, so let's put your hands up and we'll get some microphones around you. There's a gentleman here in the front row, another gentleman in the front row, gentleman in the front row, and then we'll move back.
Hello. Do you think it's easier for Hollywood and audiences to accept an unhappy ending like in this film, because you managed to cut the Hollywood ending off and it seemed to be accepted by the backers and stuff, whereas with Brazil you went through hell and they cut it off, didn't they, in certain audiences?
No, that's not what happened, actually. With Brazil, they were trying to re-edit the whole movie, and they didn't get to. I mean, that's a simple fact. We had this big battle, which is, all in the Battle of Brazil book, which is amazing. No, we won on that one. They didn't get their cut at all. It ended up what it is. This was easier because it's a lower budget, and I do a final cut. It's as simple as that. So there might have been a few screams from certain departments, but tough. You sign the contract. No, I'm trying to make as good a film as you can, and a film is about the world you create, the rules within that world, and I hate it when they're broken just because people feel there needs to be a happy ending. I also think it demeans the audience, that they think only audiences all they want to see is happy endings. Come on, audiences want to think. Audiences would like to see something different. I think last summer's tentpole movies failures prove the audiences maybe are getting ready to see something different than the last movie they've seen for the last 20 years. Different costumes, same explosions.
This gentleman here, please, and then we'll go to you, sir.
Hi. I really enjoy your films for the philosophical depth that they have. I wondered if there were any particular philosophers or concepts that you had in mind when you were working on this one.
Other than trying to disconnect from the connectable world or collectible world, no, I don't know. That was a key thing, and I try to avoid them, strangely enough. I mean, I try to make intelligent films, and they are thought through on many levels, but I never intellectualize it. And I often don't know what I've done until I've done it. But I kind of work from what seems to be honest or truthful, or at least entertaining, if they're not honest and truthful, something. And that's it. And I suppose, going against the grain. If everybody's marching that way, I tend to go that way. So it seemed to me, a few years ago, Tom Stoppard and I were talking about how could we make Brazil 2. And neither of us knew how to deal with the world as it is, because it's becoming so, amorphous. There's so many connections. Everything's going in all directions. And this, when it came as it did, the script, it did seem to deal with these ideas about somebody trying to disconnect. Okay, that's interesting. Let's play with that.
So Brazil 2 never got farther than a conversation between yourself and Tom Stoppard?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So every time I read about this being Brazil 2 in the reviews, I say, well, maybe that's what one did. But at least there's an area that I thought I had a feeling about. It's so hard to understand the world we're living in now because it's changing so quickly. It's so broadly based. It's nice that information is flowing if you use it. But the fact that, 75% of the web is porn. There's nothing wrong with that, mind you. But it does seem to be, a little bit too much. But these numbers are not
That's a conservative
inaccurate.
estimate, is it?
What?
That's a conservative estimate, I'm guessing.
But that's why
I
when
wouldn't know, obviously.
Yeah,
But,
what I think is very funny, because there have been a couple of reviews to Melody being some sort of sex object. Yes, that's what she is, but she's much more complicated than that. But she's in the business that seems to be so popular. But I do find the fact that we waste so much time taking pictures of the food we're eating to share with everybody else. Or we go to concerts and spend money for the show, and before the first song is finished, we've got a selfie with the show in the background and our comments about the song before it's even finished. These are the things that make me crazy, and I suppose what I'm arguing for is live for the moment. Arcade Fire, who I did this webcast a couple years ago with, and their album The Suburbs, have a great song called We Used to Wait, and it's all about before modern communication, where you'd write a letter, send it out, and it would take maybe a month before it came back. And the waiting was what made the whole thing so interesting, not just getting the thing back immediately. And we don't do that. We seem to be frightened of that. So that's the thing I'm bleating on about in this film, I suppose, in my very circuitous way.
And now we have this strange phenomenon where people are so impatient. If a web page takes more than 5 seconds to load, you're raging and screaming at the screen. Seems very strange, yeah.
But are we going to just sort of have a mass? We're all becoming, I think, a gigantic brain is what we are on the world. We're all this thing. We are like the world's brain, and are we going to have some sort of stroke, some embolism at one point where bang, it goes like that, and then we're all walking around on air. I don't know. I mean, wouldn't that be nice if all of us would? But it may happen, folks. Be careful.
Follow that, please, sir.
Similar to sort of the last question, with sort of like the clip showed with the maths and the physics involved, did you work with sort of scientific correspondence? And did you sort of adapt the script to sort of proper science and things like that? What was that like?
No, things happen. When you're making a film, my theory now, which I almost prefer to having complete control of, things happen. And you just start working, and then somebody comes up with a different idea, and you move down that road, or the actor goes this way, and you go, I think it's kind of like riding a horse. The horse knows where it wants to go half the time. You do a little nudge here, and I'm beginning to enjoy this kind of filmmaking, which has been forced on me by not having the money I dreamed of to do what I wanted. And so all I know, the paths lead you in slightly different directions, and hopefully the people that you surround yourself with, because I work with, I get the credit for it all. I also get the blame, but it's a team effort. And I'm always being argued with, and I argue for different things in it, because when I'm making a film, it's just trying to find my way through it. But I'm always just trying to be honest about things. And I find, interestingly enough, some people, when they see my film, this one and others, because there's so much information in there, all the things I'm complaining about, information overload, but I put it in the film, and the visuals are very rich, and they're telling stories in themselves. They kind of freak out and think it's much more intellectual than it really is. And that's why I find so often the best fans are the kids who come in with no preconceptions and are willing to trust me to take them through it, through the journey. My wife, when she first saw the thing, and I was very worried, I don't know if that works. She says, all you've got to do to this film is submit to it. Actually, that means Islam, doesn't it? Islam translate as submission. So I'm asking you all for a moment, join us in Islam and submit to Zero Theorem. It's a better film that way. Don't intellectualize it. Feel it. And it's even better the second time. The third time is fantastic. The fourth is almost unwatchable. It's so extraordinary. Sorry.
But I guess in terms of your question was also about the veracity of the science in the movie and the mathematics. Was that as?
It's actually true. There is stuff in there, because one of the guys who was doing the on the effects, his father is a big physicist, and he gave us a lot of equations, which we just copied. I don't know what they mean. I have not a clue what they mean, but there was something to do with black holes and things. So what you see on the wall there is an actual equation. That's all I can say.
Okay, any more questions for Terry?
Hi, Terry.
Hi.
You always seem to... Hello. You always seem to get the weirdest performance out of your actors. Like, in 12 Monkeys, I don't know how you got Brad Pitt to Google his eyes so much, but how do you work with them to get those performances out of them?
It's probably that I don't work with them. I play with them. That's the key. No, you hire people, number one, who you think are right for the part and also are going to be fun to work with. And then you create an atmosphere that they can feel safe in, and they can take chances and go over the edge. And hopefully I won't reveal those moments that don't work, and we'll save them in the editing room. Someone like Brad, when I met him, it was clear, he had never been a motor mouth before. The character demanded that. And he came to London, and he was so keen to be in the film. And I liked him just as a person. I thought, yeah, let's have a go. And I was actually terrified up until the moment he actually turned up on the set, because I thought, this could be a complete disaster. But what he did, two things. I put him together with a man named Stephen Bridgewater, who had worked with Jeff Bridges on Fisher King. And Stephen started doing exercises, vocal exercises. Brad went to many mental hospitals, talked to a lot of doctors. He really did his research. And the moment of relief for me was the first day of shooting with him, which is exactly the opening scene with him in the film. And he just burst in there with all the tricks and everything and all this. It was just extraordinary. But he worked at it. He did it. And I just encourage and try to take a chance, play, be dangerous, because that to me is the exciting part of filmmaking, is to see how close to the edge you can get before you die.
Thank you. There's a lady beside you, yeah.
Hello. I'd like to ask, since you were tied on money with this film as well, did you have someone make a documentary about it, like Lost in La Mancha?
No, this one, there was no room for anybody to hang around the set. There's no diary of this one. All I can say is that we did it because, people like Tilda was there for one day. The scene is a doctor scene with Sanjeev Bhaskar, Peter Stormare, and Ben Whishaw. One day. Matt Damon, 4 days. David Thewlis, 7. I mean, we condensed everything, so what they had to do was in a very short period of time. It doesn't feel like that when you see the film. Tilda is so omnipresent in the film. But that was it, and they came down and they worked for scale, basically next to nothing, just to play.
We've got time for a couple of last questions. Is there anyone over on this side at all? If not, I'll go to this gentleman right here in the center.
I was wondering, how long does it take to create the universe in which the characters evolve in the movie, which definitely has a Gilliam touch, like in other films, and were you facing any issues due to budget and things that you wanted to make and you weren't able to do in the end?
What you see there was basically put together in 2 months from scratch. I mean, all the ideas come in, and I just start the ball rolling. In this particular instance, there's a German painter called Neo Rauch, who I liked the way he collaged, worked together different styles of painting all within one, different colors. I said, let's start with that. And then we just start working, and we stay close together. So, I mean, I'm involved in I'm running from all the departments, and people just start coming up with wonderful ideas. I say, yeah, we'll go with that one. There was this Romanian guy who was doing all the packaging, flakes of corn for breakfast. And his English was just slightly askew. And it just made me laugh every day. So, yeah, more of that stuff. And it was really like that. There wasn't time to plan. Dave Warren designed it. And Dave I've known him for years. He was the real designer on Parnassus. And he was just running like a madman trying to do this. We grab this. I see a building in Bucharest. Let's use that. And the big mainframe of the computer was at a steel plant outside of Bucharest. And it was a great ruined building with this huge circular, gigantic thing in it with a huge hole blown in the side of it. And I said, a computer, it looks like to me. And that's what we did. The church... we couldn't find a chapel that really looked burnt out enough and all that there, so we built it, and we decided to incorporate. It's both Protestant, Catholic, and Orthodox, all branches of Christianity in one church that's burnt with a headless Jesus leading, and so. That's how we do it. And if you've got good people, on films, so often people are frightened, the different people in the different departments, because if the project is too big, the hierarchy up here and the workers down there, I don't have any hierarchy. We can't afford to hire the hierarchy. So it's me and them directly. Good idea. Great. Let's go. Next. Yeah, good idea. And we play, and it's exhilarating when it's working. The hard work is then from having the ideas to then carrying them out. The one problem we had on this film was that we did a lot of the effects, the island in particular, was done in Bucharest with a company there, because I just wanted to use local talent. And there was a big problem there because they were understaffed, under everything, and we ended up 9 months in post. I've never been 9 months in post. Normally it's 6 months, and major problems. But we got there in the end. So it's I don't know. I find it more exhilarating working with less than with more, because you really just have to, come on, we're going to make a film. Let's go. We'll go out and do it.
And before we take the last question from the audience, I just want to ask one last thing. As someone who has paid money for tickets, how's the Python show coming along? Are you in rehearsals yet, or have you seen a...
No, at the beginning of the week I was down looking at the set we've done. The set's going to be pretty spectacular. And it's got these rather boring old men standing in front of it. But the set won't disappoint you. That's all I can say. We won't really do anything until a week before the show is when we all gather to start rehearsing. So hopefully the costumes will be ready. The wigs will be ready. The wheelchairs will be standing by. And then we'll get together. And, I mean, we do have the show planned out, the sketches and everything we're doing. But I know it'll change when we get together. Something will happen. The best played plans will go awry. I'm hoping, because I just don't want it to be us, in our death throes out there. But the point I keep saying is, we've got your money. We don't have to even turn up, to be honest.
It's too late now. And the last question from over here. Yes, please.
Hello, Terry. Very nice to see you. And a very complex film, invigorating, aliving, enriching, feeding the imagination, sparking all over the place. What did you enjoy most about the film, making the film?
Probably very little. Getting it finished was good. It was really hard work. This is always the problem when you're making a film, is that once you've leapt off the cliff, it's just a long, painful way down until you get out of it. And it was literally only at the end, after we'd finished it, it was dubbed, and I got to get away from it for several weeks. I had to go back to look at a regrading of some prints. And it was the first time I was able to sit down and look at it and say, yeah, we made a good film here. This is a good film. Because up till then, I really didn't know. I think the thing that, if I'm going to have to pick out the things I enjoy, it's the actors. Because every day, they come in and surprise me. And that's the wonderful part. I think so many films now are so mechanical now because they're so complex as far as technical things and special effects. The actors just go in there, wear the costume, and say the line, and then look, oh God, it's coming, oh no, run. And I find that's boring. I just like the actors coming in, even though we've discussed what we're doing in advance, you give them space and they surprise you every time. It's wonderful.
Thank you very much indeed. That's all the time we have. The Zero Theorem is out now. I think Terry would like you to go see it. How many times over the weekend?
Yeah, well, it closes tomorrow, so you've got, what, it's about, I think it's an hour and a half. Let's go.
An hour and a half, yeah. It's about 6 times before it closes tomorrow. Thank you so much for coming. Thanks for your questions. Thank you, Terry Gilliam.
Thank you.